Thank you all for joining us tonight for the CPDC hearing of June 12th, 2023. I can note that this meeting is conducted in person and over Zoom, and it's also being recorded and broadcasted by RCTV. From staff in person, there's me, Andrew McNichol, the Community Development Director, and Senior Planner Mary Benedetto is on the Zoom call. From the board here, we have in person all 5 members, Tony DiLorenzo, Mark Wetzel, John Weston, Chair Heather Klisch, and Pamela Adrian. So for those of you who are on the Zoom call, we ask that you please stay muted until acknowledged. The board is going to follow the normal procedure that an applicant, if any tonight, will present their application. The board will provide comment and question amongst themselves and then open to public comment. If you do have a comment or question, please use the raised hand feature, or if your camera is on, simply raise your hand and we will look to acknowledge you for the chair. If you do come in person, please use the sign-in sheet in the corner, and as you provide public comment, please introduce your name and address for the record. And I think that is it from me.
I think you might want to, okay, thank you. There was a TikTok-like thing going on.
Gotcha.
But Mary's remote, so, okay, great, thank you. Well, we have a bunch of continuance requests.
You do.
Let's see, the first item up is a request to continue the public hearing at 45 Beacon Street for a preliminary subdivision application.
So,
To read something into the record.
in this case, it would just be a motion. We did confirm with the applicant that in early June, they let us know that they were not going to be able to meet the submittal deadline for the revised plan, so they've requested this continuance to the July meeting. I would note that in the continuance, we would probably want to again extend the 45-day period for CPDC to act to the Thursday, July 13th, 2023.
You know what?
Do that. Just in case.
Okay.
So did they agree to an extension of?
Yes, so a continuance virtually does extend the period, but
Okay.
I just like to cross our T's, dot our I's in the record.
Yep.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for the 45 Beacon Street preliminary subdivision plan.
second. And does the motion need to include that we're also extending the 45-day
Yes.
decision period?
So added to the
Okay,
motion.
all in favor of the motion as amended?
Yes. Yes.
Boy, you see it all at once.
Woo, yeah, we
Yeah.
don't need to do roll call, we're gonna be done in 10 minutes. I'm glad you put these all at 7:30, okay. We have another request to continue the public hearing for the major modification to the definitive subdivision and stormwater permit at the Grandview Road extension.
Do we need to extend that?
You do not. There's a 135-day period that the July meeting will fall within, so there is no extension needed for that.
However, we're going to do it in case something goes wrong, correct?
I guess we don't need to do it yet, right?
Right, in July, you would need to do, I would ask that we do it if this doesn't seem like there's gonna be action. But
I just don't want to get into a situation where we're forced because all of a sudden, yeah, there's 135 days and we didn't have to continue it, but all of a sudden we're coming up on the deadline and the applicant decides, no, I don't want to allow you to continue.
When does the 130 days run out?
it was in mid to late July. If you would like to extend it, Giovanni Videra, the applicant, is here, so he might be willing to agree as well if you would like to extend that to mid-August following your August hearing date.
Can we do the July meeting?
Yeah, so,
So what we're at, what the question is this: if we continue it just to the July meeting, and we don't extend the 130 days timeframe for action, at the July meeting, the board would have to take action regardless of what we saw, right? Because the 130 days runs out between the July meeting and the August meeting.
unless the applicant and you agree to a continuance there at the meeting.
And I think what Tony is suggesting is that we extend it now so that we aren't we aren't in the position of potentially negotiating a continuance. I don't think we would be, but it seems like we've learned that this is maybe good practice, so that we don't find ourselves negotiating a continuance versus approval at the July meeting. Did I get you
Yes.
right?
Does that sound fair, Gio?
Yes, that sounds fair. I'm sure we'll have everything submitted by next week, but that's good.
And should we start to put dates, times on the July meeting? So you slot them in and they know? Or not?
Yes, so this is something we can talk about later in the night too. When we continue, we might not need to do an exact time anymore. I've been looking into other towns, they don't give exact time slots, just usually like a 7:30 meeting start time. And that gives us a bit more flexibility.
Most of the boards that I'm familiar with just at 7:30 because you never knew when.
Right, so
was gonna happen.
it's probably a practice I'd like to start implementing just to give us some flexibility. I agree that the dedicated time is nice, so everybody knows and the public is well aware, but just with like 6 meeting agenda topics next week, it's a bit hard to plug and play.
So I'll make a motion that we continue the public hearing for major modification to definitive subdivision and stormwater permit for Grandview Road extension to Monday, July 10th, 2023, and also grant a 45-day extension to the public hearing process.
I'll second.
Okay, great. All those in favor? So nice to just put
I know.
All right, thank
Don't have to
you.
waste your breath and say, Pam, you
And while we are on this topic of Grandview Road, if we wanna take an item out of order for the extension of time, request.
Okay, yes, there's the
It's under other business.
other business, there's an extension of time request. What is that about? It's a continuance and extension request.
So it's a bit different than the public hearing. So, and again, the applicant's engineer Giovanni Federa is here, but the plans for the original Grandview approval were endorsed on July 12th, 2021. There's a 2-year window of completion between the endorsement date or the surety date, whichever is sooner. The surety hasn't been established yet, so it defaults to that endorsement date. That date of July 12th, 2023 is coming up, and in efforts to prepare for the modification and move things forward on their end, the applicant is requesting a 1-year extension from July 12th, 2023 to July 12th, 2024 to begin construction and act on the permit.
This is despite our our changes, our major modifications to the subplan, definitive subplan division. So I'm not certain how that works with the delayed. So they're making a request for modification now.
Right.
So how does that impact the delay? So would we start a new clock when we get the major modifications through? So it starts at 2 years, or is the clock still running from prior and they will have a 1 year from then?
So I believe, and it's not clear, but you will have to re-endorse if they went forward and approved a major mod plan, you would have to re-endorse those plans, and that would start to act the timeline on those endorsed plans. But the likelihood of you doing that before July 12th, 2023 is fairly slim at this point, given it hasn't been approved and then needs to come back for endorsement if it were to be approved. So this is an effort to ensure that the permit they have remains valid.
Okay.
Alright, any other questions or comments? That is a good question. Okay, I haven't been asking, if there are any comments from
We
the
have not.
Zoom, okay. Alright, would anyone like to make a motion to extend the time limit for completion?
I'll make a motion to extend the time limit for completion of the Grandview Road definitive subdivision by 365 days from, what was the dates?
July 12th.
July 12th, 2023 to
Yeah.
July 12th, 2024.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay,
Great, and that will come with the decision that I'll get to the applicant.
excellent, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, and our next item of business is also a request to continue the public hearing for the 40R plan review at 25 Haven Street. Is that just for 1 month or do they want longer?
That is for 1 month again.
Might I suggest the next time they come in with a request for an extension, that they make the extension perhaps a bit longer, 2 or 3 months?
Yes, I've asked similar.
That project started before I was here, what's the reason for the delays?
So from my understanding, they're reviewing options that they have for the property, whether to transfer ownerships and sell or continue on a development path and review what's financially feasible at the site. That they're kind of looking at all options that they have left. So there hasn't been much progress to date, but I think within the coming month, we should see something.
They've applied for a specific project.
Yes, and so they came for 1 to 2 hearings, I believe.
Spread out.
Yes, very spread out, similar to this. The last received was, I believe, around October to late fall 2022.
And also just probably of interest, they are working under our previous 40R bylaws because they filed something that froze the zoning for that
Yep.
property in their plan.
Correct, so they froze the zoning through a subdivision plan, shouldn't put that in quotes, it was a subdivision plan, to freeze the zoning and thus, again, maybe part of the reason why they're continuing the application rather than withdrawing to maintain that status.
I'm definitely willing to grant them another extension. When they did come back with the last plan, it very closely mirrored our new zoning bylaw requirements anyhow. So given that the applicant is looking to work with the town to at least come as close as possible to those recommendations, the current zoning, I say we can give it to them. Not that I want to do this forever.
Right, I agree. Yep.
Those were all good points to have in the record, yeah. Okay, any other questions or discussion? Okay, would anybody like to make a motion to extend this to July 10th?
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing, 40R plan review, 25 Haven Street by 25 Haven Street LLC until Monday, July 10th, 2023 at the request of the applicant.
And then do we also kind of accept their offer to extend the 120-day period until August 15th, 2023?
Please.
Yes.
Second.
All right, all in favor? This is the one we could have done by Zoom.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're on to planning updates and other topics. We just did the Grandview Road extension of time request. Next up is the certificate of completion for Lynetta Lane, otherwise known as Form O, I mean.
So Form O is typically partnered with Form M. We had received the Form M for this property to reduce the existing surety down to completion to $0, the remaining bond amount, to reduce it completely. I had only just received the Form O tonight at 7:35 p.m., so I'm not too inclined for you to sign it without looking at it a bit more. Really, the Form O is needed prior to a street acceptance through town meeting. We can still act on the Form M for the bond reduction request. So I'd like to do that tonight if we can and if you feel appropriate. And so just to note, so Lynetta Lane, the bond was originally acted upon of $157,000+. There was a transfer of ownership within a year period or so during that time, and at that time the bond was reduced to $142,000. And somewhere in between there, it looked like in January of this year that they had tried to provide an estimate of reduction, but it was never acted upon. So I apologize if that was confusing in the spreadsheet that showed 41,000 remaining. That's not the case because that was not acted upon, nor was I ever really aware of it. So the remaining bond amount is $143,355.87 that the bank states, and the applicant is requesting a reduction to zero, a complete reduction. The town engineering department and I have reviewed all of their materials and they've met all the conditions and reviews needed for completion. So we are okay if you were to reduce the bond.
Okay, any questions?
In these cases, does the town engineer's office give us a letter stating that they have done a final inspection and everything's completed as?
They don't typically provide a memo. They do provide comments on the Form M if and when needed, if they don't agree that the changes are as complete as the developer had applied for. But in this case, they agreed fully that the items have been satisfied to completion.
And then but then street acceptance goes to town meeting.
Right.
Correct.
Right, and we will need the Form O.
You get to do a sort of a final punch list.
Right, yep. Correct.
And they have provided the operations and maintenance plan?
Yep, we have the as-built, we do have the street acceptance plan. You've met all conditions, and the tree warden went out to inspect the trees. We took a look at the site. The tree warden went out separately to look at the street trees, all done properly, gatored and staked properly, in healthy condition and doing fairly well this season, so he's okay with them.
Is there anybody else on the
Okay.
call for this one? Waving hands?
I do not have any hands raised.
Okay. Andrew, can you remind me what the action is? Do we need to
I believe it's an endorsement of the
endorse Form M
request.
for this? Okay. Would anyone like to move that we endorse this?
Move that CPDC endorse Form M for Lynetta Lane, bringing the value of the retained monies down to $0.
Okay, all those in favor? All right,
Thank you.
and now we have something similar, also a Form M for the Howard Street bond reduction request.
Correct. So this is the 135 to 149R Howard Street subdivision, also known as Joy Lane. The new road will be called. The plans were endorsed and a bond was originally set at $290,000. The developer has completed a degree of work on the roadway, including curbing, loam and seed, and some other items. So they've requested a reduction by just under $124,000 to bring the total down from $290,000 to $166,14.75. Again, the engineering department and I went out to look at the site, and they felt that the items being requested were substantially completed, and you'll notice some partial reductions, I believe for like loam and seed that we still held some money for. And they were okay with that, just to ensure going forward that these items are satisfied. So, once
And
again,
I inspect that about 3 or 4 times a week.
How's it looking?
Well, I would say, I was a little disappointed because I sent Andrew an email that there's no sidewalks. And I don't know, my policy is if you're putting in a new street, you gotta put in a sidewalk regardless of whether it connects to a sidewalk somewhere else. In the end, the last house is nowhere near finished. They've still got a lot of work to do back there.
Correct.
But everything else is, I think, in pretty good shape.
yeah, it was looking fairly good.
The first house right on the corner of Howard Street still has some loaming and seeding to do.
Yep.
I'm sure
Yep.
I haven't looked at all the quantities.
And there's some detention ponds in the area that seem to be working to their intention.
Oh, good. Okay. Would any other questions or discussion on this? Anything from the Zoom?
Nothing.
Okay,
Andrew, a reminder, how much are we reducing this by?
You are reducing it by $123,985.25.
Is it easier if we just reduce it by 120,000? If we were hypothetically to say 120,000 instead of going down to the penny, does that create a problem for you or for DPW?
it might create a problem just because the accounting is so precise on this.
Right.
Yeah, it's-
You basically have a schedule of values and you plug in all the
Right.
numbers and.
Okay,
Yeah, it'd be tougher for me to figure out where to plug it back into on the schedule of values.
okay, just checking. In that case, move to endorse Plan M,
Form M.
Form M, thank you. Something. Form N for Joy Lane off Howard Street to reduce the bond by $123,985.25.
Second,
Okay, all those in favor? Alright.
Great. Okay.
Okay, boy, our next item is MBTA Communities Update.
Yes, it won't be a substantial update tonight. We just wanted to kind of give you a brief update of where we were at today. So last month we had given you an update that we were working on the survey and the website that we were preparing for early June. The survey has been finalized. Not all of your comments made it in, and we will admit that we went back and forth on debate of many time of items like the triplexes, image, and so on, and how to best include that if not in that way. And admittedly, we had been looking for mapping exercises in the survey itself. We could not get the SurveyMonkey upgrade in time to plug in a map question or two that could get us a bit more targeted information and feedback. So we had to revise the questions to be a bit more location based given context rather than like specific areas of town. So we modified those questions, and we just did that because we didn't really want to delay this survey much longer and for whatever reason, that upgrade just wasn't coming in. So it all ended up working out, and we'll be able to use the results, I think, as we worded the questions. But that is up on the website, and I encourage you to take a look and share with your friends, families, and neighbors. We added a subscribe function to the top of our webpage. I can share it here even. To start gathering those most interested in the effort, that they can subscribe, and we can continuously outreach to them with new dates, forum dates, information, updates along the way. So we think that that will be helpful. We've gotten some feedback that the FAQ page hasn't always been working. It can cut off here, so we're kind of playing with that of, can we fix it so that it works, or do we have to kind of reformat this page and really just make it one long body or other design style? So because at the end of the day, we want people to be able to read these questions and the answers to them and the information provided, because it's a lot and it's helpful. So if people start getting frustrated right off the bat at the website, that's not a good sign. So we'll look to adjust that and fix that in the best way possible. We did do a tabling event at the Friends and Family Day on Saturday. Both Mary and I were there. We were handing out flyers, tabling, learned a lot from our first event on how to improve going forward. So we brought a bunch of mapping exercises in 24 by 36 format with stickers and charrettes and trying to get people to do it. But the event was very fast paced. People just wanted to come to your booth, stop, hear the spiel, and move on to the next one, which was fine. We had a lot of great conversations, a lot of great feedback with families and residents. We handed out 75 plus flyers of our survey and website. So we're hopeful we get a strong response from that. And this week we'll be doing the social media blastings, website blastings, and boards, committees, and email blastings with this as well. So I started that today to outreach to some certain lists that we have across the town departments that should be able to help, hopefully, and would be a big help. So that word is getting out now, and we'll run the survey through the end of August in hopes of getting as much data as possible that we can use. We'll probably pull the results every so often to share with you guys and start building some takeaways from along the way. But in the meantime, we will continue to look at the data. We've pulled a lot of GIS data for a lot of zones and pockets in town to start looking at the lot data. So that review is also underway right now and starting this week. So it's full steam ahead fairly quickly right now. We did submit a One Stop for Growth grant application for additional technical assistance in relation to this effort. We're hopeful, so the state administration plugged in more money for this, I think realizing off feedback that, hey, we need help. A lot of towns need help. So we quickly submitted an application. It was a quick turnaround, quick deadline, but we got it in, and a pretty comprehensive scope to include public engagement, support, zoning, language help, and whether that's zoning or similar to a form-based code and form style that we've mentioned in the past, and as well as GIS and economic analysis of whatever it is we end up kind of moving forward with. So all in all, it will probably end up helping us choose that storyboard of menus we've talked about in the past and finding 2 or 3 plus paths forward and then presenting them from there. So if awarded, which we should know any day now because they want a contract executed by the end of June. So that would be great and a great support. But that's where we are to date, unless Mary, I missed anything, if you're there.
No, I think you're good.
I had a couple questions.
Yep.
One was on the website. Is there a way we can track like how many hits you get and do a statistical analysis on that?
There is, I believe our new website does have that ability. We've talked to some staff about that, and I think they're looking into it.
And then the other thing, one of the in AIR, the economic development director would, when he had a project in a specific neighborhood or something, he would do like an evening walking tour.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you wouldn't get a lot of people, you might get 20 or 25 people.
That's a lot.
But they were really, well, you know,
Mhm.
they got more and more popular as
Yep.
you did them. And so that might be a good way to do some outreach, is to pick
Yeah.
certain areas and walk and point out different.
Yeah, I think we definitely want to do that and focus that within the half-mile radius. I know not all of the zoning needs to go there, but it is the biggest conversation, most likely one of it. So we're planning some pop-up events at Washington Park and Memorial, and we can pivot to neighborhood walks as well. Whether daytime or early evening, we're trying to plan for both to provide some options. We'll probably be at a few other town events we mentioned over the summer. Starting Tuesday, the 20th at the library, we'll probably be trying to table there. So we'll adjust some of our maps and questions accordingly for each fit, as we kind of saw based on Friends and Family Day. So hopefully we start getting either more survey responses or more feedback right at these events.
So for days like what you just mentioned at the library on, did you say July 20th or June 20th?
June 20th, sorry.
Is that coinciding with another event where you know that people will be going
It
there?
is, it's part of their concert series, so
Oh,
I'll
okay.
get to enjoy live music while I'm there too.
I was gonna note, I mean, it is the website glitch there with the little
Mhm.
banner at the bottom that sort of doesn't get out of the way is frustrating, so I'm glad that you're.
Great.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's just this page either, isn't it?
No, I
No,
think it's like
yeah.
our FAQ
Yeah.
format
Yeah, it doesn't
in
get out of the
general.
This thing at the bottom. This,
Oh,
this at the bottom that
Yeah, it just, like,
things
cuts
bleed
up.
down, yeah, things bleed down into it. And
I have other glitches, yeah,
um,
but not that one, okay.
And the video that Mass Housing Partnership made, it's a nice little video, but it really does not help our cause.
No, it's very
I unfortunately use Reading as a, I don't know if you watched it,
I have not watched it.
great example of a walkable place, which is good.
Good, it is.
Yeah. But to use that as a advertisement of how things should be,
Right.
not how things are going to change, doesn't really help.
Mhm.
Helps other towns look at what it can be, but it doesn't help Reading.
right.
Yeah, kind of,
Prepare
Yeah,
for
sort of like-
kind of
it
to the,
kinda-
kind of to the point where if
where-
we're doing things that are
Yes.
the model
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we still
We
have
have to.
you know, are out of compliance with the
Yes.
law,
And-
what's going on?
Yeah.
Noted.
Yeah.
Where
I'm sure
is
that
the
did, I'm
video?
sure
Is
you
that on, is
said
the
too.
video on the homepage here?
Oh,
Sorry, what was
Is
that?
the video on the webpage
yeah,
here?
there's a
It
link
is,
to it.
yeah.
There's a link to it
Under
helpful
helpful
studies.
study, yeah, so if you can
Oh,
get
wait,
that
is
to
there?
work,
Yeah,
That,
and if you do see a department that you've never heard of before, called the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, that is
the new
DHCD, so they just changed their title, so
this is a little niggly thing, but if it's intended for the general public to come here and learn about it, I think most people do know what the MBTA is, I think that's fair enough, but the EOHLC, I don't even know if it would fit on one line, but I would spell that out.
yes, it is spelled out in the first question, but you're right, maybe if they skip over that, they'll want to know who that is, so we could either put the whole term there or say how did the state calculate.
Oh, yeah, and I am seeing the glitch where it's impossible to, I am now seeing the
Yeah.
glitch where when you
Yeah.
look at MBTA communities, you can't
You
read
can't
past
get
the
down.
Mhm.
third sentence, or the third paragraph, that's a problem.
Yeah, so we're trying to see if Civic Plus can figure it out to help us and stop the bottomless pit, or if we have to change the format. The ideal is to have them collapsible, but ideals aren't always possible.
Yeah.
So,
I opened it in a new tab and went in and it worked like a charm.
Yeah, I opened it again and it worked.
yeah,
Or
if
fine,
you
so it's
refresh
fine.
sometimes it seems, yeah, but I agree. I mean, if it gets frustrating for people and they close it out because it's for them, it's not helping the cause, so.
Oh, yeah, I see, okay.
The only other recommendation, Andrew, I have is, and I was thinking about this, you know how you have your sample images for different sized units?
Mm-hmm.
What if you used real life examples?
We had also debated that, and so we were back and forth, but when we started looking at real life examples, what we found is people could be too distracted, and we did a bunch of test scenarios with staff that people could be too distracted by colors or too much landscape or lack of landscape or this parking out front when we don't, and so it wasn't when we talked about it, we found that the form images, black and white sketches kind of gave a bit more vision as what we were talking about and presenting without getting too much into the nitty gritty of parking and landscaping at this time on a site.
And I do see how you put a big disclaimer that the question is about the number of units and how those are there as examples of what the number of units are, and the next one is about architectural
Right.
design.
Yep.
And I'm gonna go back to, right, the comment made before I get about not changing the graphic, but the definition of a triplex is like a triple decker, or commonly called a triple decker,
But they're not
but they're
limited
not.
to
And
triple deckers.
yeah, and I do
really-
think that's
Okay.
specifically emanating for groups of people who grew up in Somerville or the area, like that, right, that might have negative connotations.
I agree, if there were
just because
anything that you would change,
there's so many there
if
that-
there's any way to put two there, I
We
mean,
did
I
try
have
that
never
with
seen
the
it,
Or
I have,
at
I
least
had-
don't reference, I mean, it can be a triple decker, and triple deckers are fine and great, actually, they're perfect housing, but that's not all it is, and right, people will, I think, immediately, so I would
Yeah.
just recommend getting, like, don't reference
The
a
definition.
triplex as a
Okay,
triple
just
decker.
keep it to 3 units, yeah.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly, because
Agreed.
that's, I
Yeah.
mean,
We can do
triple
that.
deckers, I mean, I'm sure they're around in other places in the country, I had never seen one before I moved to New England, I mean, they're very eastern, right? Aren't they?
They are
Yes.
historically, yeah.
They're very factory housing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see them a lot in Lawrence, Lowell, Haverhill.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so for people to kind of keep in their minds, when you get down to the architectural design, that there's a breadth of
Right, cause you're right, there's more
ways
ways
that
to do 3
triplexes
units, yeah.
can be built, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, noted, can do. That is it on that topic.
Okay.
Unless there's more questions. Don't see any online.
So then, the next item is reorganization thoughts.
So I just wanted to plug this in because in July, we typically do the vote to establish a new chair and vice chair. So I just wanted you guys to start thinking about it now. It's a good time to plug in that Ms. Pamela Adrian is stepping down from Cpdc. This is the end of her term after 4 years and a good story of resident involvement to then becoming vice chair to now member again and sticking with it through and through. With great help and support, so thank you, Pam. But she would not be in consideration for chair or vice chair in
Yes,
July.
this is the good time to thank Pam for
Yeah.
your service and your contributions.
Happy to do it.
And I have a guess that we might still see you from, the commenting
yes.
standpoint. When a project or initiative moves you, yeah,
We'll stay close to
Which we
the
welcome.
which we absolutely welcome. All right, so the question is thoughts.
Do we know when those people who have interviewed will be up for consideration and how quickly they'll move on those?
I don't know. So I think Vask was meeting this week, if not tonight, on a few applicants. I don't know if CPDC
I
applicants
think
were
there
included in
were, Tony, have you been interviewed yet?
I'm
Tony's
good, I'm
good, yeah.
good. I am now a full-time member.
Tony is officially a
Really?
full-time
Yes,
member.
yeah.
Oh, wait, I shouldn't have said that.
And I do know of another candidate who was interviewed last week. I don't know when Basque will be voting, and then it goes to select board vote, so there are a couple of things. I do know that there was another candidate that was also interviewed a couple months ago. And I don't know where that application stands now. But there are candidates in the hopper.
That's good.
Very good.
Great. So in the meantime, being down to 4 members, just do let us know if you can't make a meeting so we can plan for quorum. We do want at least 3 at every meeting, preferably the 4, but you don't act on special permits, at least on any upcoming agendas, so 3 to vote is fine, but just give us a heads up if something comes up in summer. This vacations is life, so it's fine. We'll always figure it out, but
And how long will hybrid meetings continue? Wasn't there didn't the government have to?
So the government extended the ability for the board to meet fully remote if you desire for 2 years to 2025. You've all been pretty good about meeting in person, but we can do a remote only meeting if we need to now. Or if we do hybrid, a quorum of you can remote in if needed as well. I imagine we'll be continuing the hybrid fairly consistently going forward. It's not too much of a lift on staff, and it seems to get us good public participation minus the Zoom bombing. But we're working on it still. But it's gone fairly well, and so I'd like to keep it going as long as you guys are open to it.
It's been handy, I know. I think I came in remotely once from DC. Tony, you've come in from the road. Pam, you came in when you
Oh,
had
yes.
to come in, so. I suppose we'll discuss positions again at the next meeting, because the next meeting is when we actually do the reorganization. John stepped up as secretary / vice chair. Is that the title? Is it secretary or vice chair? I can't remember.
I say
Clerk,
vice chair,
something,
but-
vice chair. But you also just came off being chair. No, because it's been a few
No, it has been a
years.
while, yeah.
It has been a
yes,
while, okay,
yeah.
so I suppose we could do formal nominations next time. And we have some new members who might want to be vice chair, and hopefully some newer members who will come in and then be getting ready to be vice chair. We might have a good flow. Yeah.
And chair nominations are not limited to just the vice chair. So we try to make it as helpful and easy as possible for the chair to just focus on running the meeting, and there's a few admin approvals every now and then that will forward along to chair and vice chair for input and opinion on those. So that's all we try to ask of the chair, and every now and then we'll meet on certain topics, the select board updates and things like that we give too.
Any other thoughts or?
So there's no real power, just more responsibility.
We'll double your.
Absolutely.
There we go.
I suppose so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the name of it.
John's an
I-
experienced chair. This
I'd
is-
say I'm not clamoring for it, but given sort of the makeup of where we are with, I'm not gonna call you a new member, but, I'm not sure you're clamoring for chair either, so,
Nobody's clamoring for
yeah, I
chair.
know, so. But
I had
but
to
would-
rope
I
Tony
would
in
do
to be
that.
a full member.
I know, I don't wanna lob too much on him all at once, so, I would do that.
That's great.
So,
Okay,
if that's where we end up.
all right.
So the last topic is the May 15th.
I will say, I don't know when the select board meets, but I think the person who was interviewed last week, pending approval by the select board, I think they will be ready to be here at the next meeting. So it could be, that's just my understanding,
Great.
yeah.
We were throwing plugins at Friends and Family Day. Volunteer, so.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
okay.
while we review the minutes, which is the next step, is there anything going on, like, I don't know, perhaps a fast food restaurant is being torn down and rebuilt?
Really?
Yes, so
Oh, wait, I did hear something about this. Yes, what's going on?
So the McDonald's site has proposed to redevelop that site, complete raise and rebuild, and reconfiguring their drive-through. Just currently, that's a non-conforming use. A drive-through restaurant in the downtown district is a non-conforming use. So are currently in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals to modify the driveway layout and use. They want to move to the double drive-through, and currently it runs along the building. They want to shift it to be an L shape off of Bolton and Ash. They want to keep all the driveways. They were raising the playground to do a front circulation thing. There's a lot of comments and needs on the application. ZBA right now is just focused on that drive-through use being more or less substantially detrimental to the neighborhood, and then the whole thing, if approved and moving forward, would trigger a site plan review with Cpdc. So you will get your chance if it gets there.
So, not to delve deep into that, because we can't, but, how does that play, this is always, right? They need to make a decision, ZBA needs to make a decision on the use, right?
Right.
That use, the detrimental nature of that use is in this case, right? In this case, is highly tied into the layout.
Right.
And so, right, we need to, they need to remain flexible in the way that they make their findings, so that there's,
Right.
so the,
So that there's wiggle room for us to,
yes,
Correct.
right,
Advised
because in years past, not recently, there were some decisions that were like, we ended up bouncing applicants back and forth because what was approved under the ZBA didn't work under a site plan review. And that just, it made, I mean, a corporation like McDonald's can deal with them back and forth, but.
We had a similar change at the McDonald's in there at the Rotary.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of issues to deal with, there's a lot of traffic
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Now you've got a lot more queuing and.
Yeah.
Because you get the train tracks and everything else.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that site's worse than,
Yeah.
because the, that whole Ash Street intersection's horrible.
so does the zoning board of appeals decide whether or not to approve the use based on their view of whether or not the layout can possibly work, and then it comes to us for us to say how to best do that? Is that the purview of the different decisions, the different boards' decisions?
Yeah, so their decision would allow a reconfiguration of the non-conforming use is, if it were to be approved that way, that's the intent, and then the site layout of that reconfiguration can be vetted by Cpdc and modified to, within certain limitations.
Do they put conditions on that
Mhm.
use, on the approval of the use?
Yeah, it's an odd application that they don't get a lot, yeah.
So the condition is based on approval by CPDC on approving that
Right.
configuration or a configuration?
Yeah, I think most of the site impact and layout will come to you for your expertise.
That will be interesting.
Yep, the materials I think are online if you are curious to take a look.
It's a complete
or-
knockdown of that building or not?
It's gonna be
A
a
lot of
busy
questions.
intersection.
What's that?
Because
It's gonna be a
Chase is right
busy
next to that
under
too.
construction intersection.
Yes, it is, yep.
I could also, this was not on the agenda, but I
Mhm.
could give an update briefly on the Simons Way
I've
Exploratory
been meaning
Committee.
to ask.
I should have
Put that on.
suggested it
Sorry,
for
I
the
should
agenda.
have put that on.
So this is the Simons Way Exploratory Committee is looking at the land that town meeting approved, basically the town acquired by permission of town meeting or by town meeting authorized it for land that is down by the Burbank Arena. Can't you tell where I'm pointing with my hands?
Yeah.
So Burbank Arena, the road that goes to the Rifle Club, and then there's a swath of land that is something like almost 15 acres, only 2.5 acres of it is buildable. On the other side, there is also town land that was outside the purview, the initial purview of this Simons Way Exploratory Committee. So the Simons Way Exploratory Committee is looking at the recommended uses and possible public-private partnerships for this land over here. There's a bunch of other town land, including a baseball field that I believe is used by Babe Ruth, including a soccer field, and then there is the land that is leased by the Burbank Ice Arena that includes parking. What transpired over the last month or so is the chair of SWEC went back to the select board and asked to expand the charge of the exploratory committee to take a look at that whole area. So we're not just looking at the sliver, but looking at what are the uses that have come up by survey, have come up by public comment, and make a recommendation for the whole area. We're a little bit more limited on the other area because there aren't the consultants available to do like a precise wetlands delineation or anything like that. But we've got a feel for the area that is basically buildable by the conservation agent's recommendation. So with that, we're meeting for a longer time. And at the last meeting, we went through evaluation criteria so that as we have the different ideas in mind and if we go out for a request for interest for public-private partnerships, we have a framework for evaluating what we do next. And we're meeting again tomorrow night. And we're gonna be going on for a longer period of time. So I'm glad I'm not gonna be chair after. I think I got all that right. I think I reported all that correctly, but it's kind of going along, yeah.
So what is the deadline for decision before Springtown meeting?
I believe the original deadline, I'm gonna really mess this up without looking it up, but I believe our original intention was to bring a recommendation to either fall or Springtown meeting. And the committee was going to sunset sometime either at the end of this year or early next year. And what I don't think we've done this yet, but I anticipate that we'll be asking probably toward the end of the calendar year to finish our work. I think we were supposed to finish our work. Actually, I think we're supposed to finish our work by August, and everybody's agreeing that's not gonna happen. So I think we're asking for something like the end of the year.
Great.
If I just talk around that, everything, I can't possibly be wrong because I said 6 different things, so one of those.
Great. No, thank you for that. I've been meaning to ask and get that on an agenda sometime soon. So,
Okay, I think next up we have minutes.
yeah, in the meantime, I can add, I think in the past I had mentioned the grant for the Oakland Road pre-development public engagement. I finalized some of the language. I sent it out for feedback from staff and some groups and drafting the letters of support. So it's getting closer. So I will forward that your guys' way just for review and comment so you're aware of kind of what this application entails and why, and then to asking the chair for a letter of support if there's no major concerns on the application. I'll forward that along
Okay,
this week.
all right, I'm around. Any other questions or updates while we have this lovely hour-long meeting?
I think at the last meeting, we talked a little bit about the master plan. I think I sent you some info. Did I do that?
You
Just sort of what,
did, I
I think
think.
just some stuff that I'd done for ours. I don't know what the, what the town's schedule is. It sounds like there's a lot of, with the MBTA plan and other stuff going on.
Yeah, when we presented to the select board.
We presented to the select board between last meeting and this meeting
Yep.
as well, and we did talk about that.
Yeah, and we weren't tasked with any specific actions at that meeting or requests. I think they want to think about it more and discuss further, but I can follow up to see kind of where that ended up, because now I haven't gotten an update.
Yeah, in our update to the select board, we did impress upon them that the work to do this year, not just CPDC, but all of us, including, we invited the select board to really be a part of the process and engage their constituents, is the MBTA communities. And that the process of doing a master plan would likely then come next.
And I thought though, coming out of town meeting, the action was to sort of identify the funding.
The action was to kind of recommend
Recommend
a
a-
price tag,
Yes,
basically,
yeah.
yeah.
But you need a scope of obviously in order to do
Yeah.
that, so.
Yeah, which we alluded to, and
Yeah.
I can start seeking if like, someone asked me to.
Yeah, and I think, Andrew, remind me, what is the is the timeframe going back to town meeting like in November, or did we suggest next spring? I can't really remember.
I think next spring for
Yeah.
the budget is typically the item.
That's right. So we should probably watch that as a discussion item for CPDC. Okay. Anything else? Look at Pam, just all excited to get out of here. She can't keep a straight
Oh, I'm
face.
sad. I am sad, it's been a long fall.
Has been a long.
So we do have minutes. And I love that we're all caught up. We're now looking at just last month's minutes.
We are. We've
And there was a request to send any edits ahead of time. I'm not knowing if people had the time to do that or have anything outstanding. I don't believe I have any edits.
on page 2. I noted in the motion, under 565 Main Street. It said in the motion itself. It said 565 Main Street. So I just removed one streets.
Okay.
And on page 7, it says, imagining it's master, maybe master plans in this case is plural. First paragraph.
But yeah, nice.
I'm assuming Mary did most of these notes?
She did. She is doing a stellar
Not
job.
that you didn't do a
Minutes,
great job.
no.
I just see a little difference in the notes.
Okay.
I had read through them, I didn't see anything.
We have no changes.
Okay, motion to approve.
Motion to approve the notes from the 5:15 meeting.
Second?
All in favor? Okay, motion to adjourn?
1 minute over an hour.
I think they started.
Oh, there we go. We did, yeah, 7:30.
In which case, motion to adjourn.
Second? Alrighty, all those in favor, thank you. Yes.
I'm calling it an hour. That's
So all the people
Thank
that
you,
I have been
Mary.
trying to